Our next speaker is Jonathan Gibbs. He's our 9th speaker, Programme Director for Creative and Professional Writing. He's just written his second novel has been written, and so I'm guessing is with the publishers, due out in the spring. It has another Amsterdam link. We've had the Amsterdam Half Marathon. That book was set in Amsterdam, entitled The Large Door. Copies are probably available on a good online retailer. Talking to us about suburban kitchens and credible dragons. Over to you, Jonathan.
Thank you very much. If you've ever been to an author reading where they answer questions afterwards, you might have noticed there's one question that authors tend to roll their eyes at more than any other, and it's this one. Where do you get your ideas? They don't like it, or they pretend they don't like it because they think it's naive, it's a little bit silly, as if you think that's the hard bit of writing a book, as opposed to the long slog of turning your original idea into a finished poem, a finished book, a finished script, or whatever. And that's absolutely true. That is the hard bit. But it's not necessarily the most interesting bit, especially if you are new to writing. So what I'd like to suggest today is that there is a simple answer to this question, and it's one that writers don't really want you to know. And furthermore, it's one that is particularly pertinent to those of us who teach creative writing at university. And I'll get to that in a minute. But to start with, the simple answer to the question, where do published writers get their ideas from, is, of course, they get them from life. They get them from their own life, from the life of those near to them or not so near, from all around them. It's not just the single idea that pushes a story or a poem or a novel, but all the other secondary ideas that go around it, the setting and the dialogue and the secondary characters and the emotional behaviour. These are all filters through which that idea has got to go. Because it's important to know that every work of imaginative fiction needs more than one idea to keep it going. Even a haiku is the bringing together of two separate ideas. And so when you find, when you're writing, that you need a second idea to prop up the one you're working on, rather as if you're building a set of bookshelves or a fence or something on your own, you reach for something to prop up what you're working on. You'll reach for something that's near at hand. And the same thing happens when you're doing creative writing. You might need a secondary character to push the plot along. You might need a kitchen to have an argument in, or you might need a view for your character to look at while they're thinking their deep thoughts. And what you'll find is that you'll reach for something that's close at hand, that's high in your mind, that springs up out of your memory. And this is something that applies to all writers, but it's really crucial for new writers, writers at the beginning of their careers, to understand you don't have to make it all up. You don't have to always start from a blank slate. You can use materials that are lying close to hand, because all art, to a certain extent, is the work of collage. It's the tacking together of pre-existing ideas. And the trick comes in the selection of the materials, and the trick comes in how you stitch those together so the joins aren't seen. That's the really hard work, so that the finished work of art looks like it was cut all from one cloth. And this thing, tacking together of existing work, is exactly what grown-up, proper, published professional writers do, I say to my students. They just happen to have more of it lying around than you do. And that's the problem when it comes to teaching creative writing at university. The problem with creative writing isn't this one, can you teach creative writing? That's easy to answer. The answer is yes. The problem is how you get your raw materials. All students need raw materials to do their research on. Scientists get it in the laboratory, geographers get it in the field, economists get it in lists of data and statistics, and English students might get it in books from the library. But for creative writing students, every time they walk into the classroom, there is no raw material there for them to work on other than the stuff they bring in their own head. You can learn how to write well by studying books, poems, plays, of course you can. But you cannot practice writing well until you start to put down your own ideas, until you start to make up your own stories. And that's where the problem comes from teaching undergraduate students. We all know that undergraduate students are at a particular moment in their life. Let's call up most undergraduate students between 18 and 25 years old. They are taking the opportunity, most of them, to leave behind the person they've been and where they've come from, and to take the opportunity to reinvent themselves and recreate themselves as a new individual to take on all the challenges that life is going to throw them after that. So it's no surprise, is it, that when they sit down to write a work of imaginative fiction, they write something that I would broadly term as fantasy. Many of them choose to do so. That can be epic fantasy, like George R.R. Martin, young adult fantasy, like J.K. Rowling. It can be science fiction, but it can also be what I'd more generally call a kind of existential fantasy that hovers above the realities of ordinary life. Young people, young writers, don't like writing about ordinary life. Why is that? I think it's because they don't think it's got enough drama, hasn't got enough power, hasn't got enough strength. But also, as I've suggested, all the examples of it that they've got, that they know intimately, is all the stuff they're trying to leave behind themselves. There's another line about creative writing you might have heard before, which is this one: write what you know. It comes in for a lot of flack. People think it's very easy, it's a very lazy way of writing. They also think it's quite dangerous, as if you're suddenly going to get hundreds of first novels about what it's like to be struggling under £1,000 of student debt and trying to write your first novel. Or there might be hundreds and hundreds of third or fourth novels about frustrated creative writing lecturers struggling out from underneath the mountains of paperwork and admin in order to finish their book. That happens too. But there's another reason why this is wrong as a statement, as a slogan. It's not quite right. It's not write what you know. It's use what you know. Imagination doesn't mean making up new things. It means knowing how to turn real things into new things. Think about how children play. They make use of what they have to hand and they adapt it. A cardboard box becomes a space rocket. A stick and a piece of rag might become a doll. It's the same thing with creative writing. You take the raw material of your own life, your own experience, and you turn it through the work of imagination into something new. By the time you're 18, you will have fallen in love, you will have had your heart broken, you would have had all manner of things happen to you here. And these aren't all the themes of creative writing and art, but it's most of them. And so what I use the creative writing of young students, new writers, what I try and teach them is that they've got to own their own experience. And that doesn't mean they have to bring in all the trauma that they've experienced to the class like some ghastly show and tell, but it means they've got to understand that that will give them credibility. If they can write that scene in a kitchen such that I believe it, then everything that they write afterwards I'll believe too. I'll believe the dragons. And if you can believe the dragons in that fantasy thing, then the original idea, whatever they came in with, will take care of itself. So thank you very much.
Jonathan, thank you. And wrong way. I've just been looking whilst you were speaking. Coming out, The Large Door comes out on the 4th of March, 2019. And just to give you a little bit of a flavour, the reviewers, an acid-sharp novella of longing and language in which the past comes up hard against the present, from Jonathan Gibbs, acclaimed author. Congratulations, well done. Very